Ambassador Jack Morrison stood at the entry port of Space Station Concordia, waiting for the atmospheric shields to adjust. The massive station hung in the void between galaxies, a neutral meeting ground for hundreds of alien civilizations. Today wasn't supposed to be special. Another emergency session, another round of debates about the Korvax Empire, another day of talking while worlds burned. The entry chamber finally chimed, and Jack stepped through the shimmering barrier into the station proper. The main corridor stretched before him, a gleaming tunnel of metal and energy fields designed to accommodate beings from every corner of the universe. He started walking, his standard-issue Diplomat's boots clicking against the floor. Around him, aliens of every description hurried to the council chamber. The Vasanti delegates floated past, their translucent bodies pulsing with soft blue light. A group of Kazarki warriors stomped by, their forearms swinging in perfect rhythm, battle-scarred armor reflecting the station lights. Two Mechanist units glided silently on anti-gravity fields, their crystalline brains visible through transparent cranial domes. Jack reached into his jacket and touched the data pad hidden in his inner pocket. The weight felt heavier than it should. The files it contained would change everything. Ambassador Morrison, called a familiar voice. Jack turned to see Ambassador Vela of the Centauri Republic approaching. Her species looked remarkably human, aside from the iridescent scales along her temples and the second set of eyelids that closed horizontally across amber eyes. Vela. Jack nodded. Here for another round of bureaucratic hand-wringing? She fell into step beside him. The council received new intelligence about the Korvax attacks on the Theta colonies. 7 billion dead, Jack. 7 billion peaceful farmers who never even had warships. I know. His voice was flat, controlled. I read the reports. Then you know we'll spend another day debating economic sanctions that the Korvax will ignore. Vela's scales shifted color, a sign of frustration in her species. Sometimes I wonder why we bother attending these sessions, Jack wanted to tell her, wanted to explain that today would be different. Instead, he kept walking. They reached the grand chamber entrance where security scanners waited to verify their identities and check for weapons. Jack placed his hand on the scanner, letting it read his DNA, retinal patterns, and brainwave signatures. The machine chimed approval. Ambassador Jack Morrison, Earth Diplomatic Corps, cleared for entry. The massive doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The room was a masterpiece of compromise architecture, designed to accommodate the environmental and psychological needs of 100 different species. The walls curved upward into a dome that displayed a real-time view of the surrounding space. Rows of seats, platforms, pools, and perches arranged themselves in a semicircle around the central speaking platform. Jack took his assigned position among the newer species, while Vela moved to join the more established civilizations. He watched as other ambassadors filed in and found their places. The Delphini delegates required mobile water tanks. The Crystalline Collective needed specially tuned harmonic resonators. The Void Walkers existed partially out of phase with normal reality, their forms flickering like bad holograms. At the center of it all stood the Council Presidium, where 5 members of the eldest spacefaring races served as moderators. Today's session was led by Counselor Zeth Nari, an Andromedan whose species had been traveling the stars for 50,000 years. His kind had evolved beyond the need for solid form, existing as patterns of conscious energy held together by will alone. Today he had shaped himself into a vaguely humanoid form out of respect for the gathered delegates. Zeth Nari raised a tendril of glowing plasma. The 4012th emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in order. We gather to address the continuing crisis presented by the Korvax Empire's expansion. Murmurs filled the chamber. The same topic they'd discussed for 3 years. New evidence has reached us regarding the destruction of the Theta colonies, Zeth Nari continued. The death toll has been confirmed at 7.3 billion sentient beings. The Korvax fleet responsible consisted of only 12 warships, yet they eliminated all planetary defenses within 6 hours. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing the last moments of Theta Prime. Orbital defense platforms exploded in sequence. Cities vanished in waves of antimatter, fire. The planet's atmosphere ignited, turning the world into a temporary star. The question before us remains unchanged, Zethnari said. How shall the Galactic Council respond to these continued acts of aggression? Ambassador Kreltak of the Saurian hegemony stood, her reptilian features tight with anger. How many more? Worlds must burn before this council takes real action? We propose immediate military intervention. The chamber erupted in debate. The warlike species called for battle fleets and invasion forces. The pacifist cultures insisted on more dialogue and understanding. The neutral parties suggested economic pressure and technological sanctions. Jack listened to it all, saying nothing. His hand drifted to his jacket again, feeling the data pad. What about the humans? Someone called out. They've been remarkably quiet lately. All eyes turned to Jack. The newest members of the galactic community were often eager to prove themselves in these debates. Humanity's silence over the past few months had been noticed. Ambassador Morrison, Zethnari said, does Earth have anything to contribute to this discussion? Jack stood slowly, every movement deliberate, calculated. He walked to the central platform, conscious of hundreds of alien eyes watching him, some dismissive, some curious, some sympathetic to the young species still finding its place among the stars. He reached the speaker's position and looked out at the assembly. 3 years of attending these sessions, 3 years of watching the council argue while the Korvax Empire grew stronger, 3 years of secret preparation. Distinguished members of the council, Jack began, his voice steady but carrying an edge that made several delegates straighten in their seats. I have an announcement to make. He pulled out his datapad and activated it. The device interfaced with the chamber's holographic systems, replacing the image of Theta Prime's destruction with a star map of human space. 3 days ago, a Korvax battle group attacked the human colony ship Yorktown. The vessel was carrying 15,000 civilians, families, children, scientists and artists heading to establish a new research station. The hologram zoomed in on a debris field floating in space. There were no survivors. The chamber fell silent. Even the perpetually chattering insectoids stopped their clicking conversations. Our analysis of recovered Korvax navigation data indicates their next target. The star map expanded, showing a direct line from the debris field to a familiar blue-green world. Earth. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the chamber. Several ambassadors made gestures of condolence according to their various cultures. We may appreciate the council's concern, Jack continued, his tone changing. But I'm not here today to ask for your protection. The murmurs stopped. For 3 years, humanity has participated in these debates. We've proposed sanctions. We've attempted diplomacy. We've watched as the Korvax systematically destroyed 7 inhabited worlds and murdered over 50 billion sentient beings. Jack's fingers moved across the datapad. The hologram changed again, now showing industrial complexes scattered across human space. While this council debated, humanity took action. We unified our entire species under a single banner. Every nation on Earth, every colony, every outpost, all working together with one purpose. The images cycled through shipyards, weapons factories, training facilities. We studied every Korvax attack, analyzed their tactics, identified their weaknesses, and we built accordingly. The hologram now displayed a fleet of ships, not the elegant, artistic vessels favored by older civilizations. These were functional, angular, designed for one purpose only. The Korvax Empire maintains a fleet of approximately 10,000 warships, Jack said. As of yesterday, humanity commands 25,000 vessels. Shocked gasps echoed through the chamber. Several ambassadors rose from their seats. Impossible, shouted the representative from Arcturus. No species could build such a fleet so quickly. Jack smiled grimly. We converted every civilian shipyard to military production, drafted our entire merchant fleet, turned asteroid mining operations into weapon foundries. When the survival of your species is at stake, you find amazing reserves of capability. He gestured to the hologram. But numbers alone won't defeat the Korvax. Their technology is superior. Their ships are larger, better armed. So we developed alternatives. The display shifted to show technical schematics, weapon systems unlike anything the Council had seen before. miniaturized antimatter warheads that can be deployed in swarms, self-replicating combat drones that multiply exponentially during battle, quantum communication networks immune to Korvax jamming, and something we call berserker protocols, AI battle systems that operate without moral constraints when facing
existential threats. Counselor Zethanari's plasma form flickered with alarm. Ambassador Morrison, what exactly are you saying? Jack turned to face the ancient being directly. I'm saying that humanity refuses to become the 8th dead civilization.
On your list. The chaos in the Grand Chamber lasted for several minutes. Delegates shouted in 100 different languages, their translators struggling to keep up with the emotional outbursts. Some species released pheromones of distress, while others flashed warning colors across their bodies. The Vosanti delegates had gone completely dark, their bioluminescence extinguished in shock. Counselor Zethnari finally restored order by generating a pulse of energy that temporarily disabled all translation devices. In the sudden silence, his plasma form brightened to an intense white. Order. There will be order in this chamber. His ancient voice carried without need for technology. He dimmed slightly as the translators reactivated. Ambassador Morrison, you cannot simply announce a war without consulting this council. There are procedures, protocols that have kept peace for millennia. Jack remained at the speaker's platform, unmoved by the chaos he had caused. With respect, Counselor, those protocols have failed. While you've debated procedures, the Korvax have grown bolder. They started with border worlds no one cared about. Now they're targeting established colonies. How long before they attack? One of your core worlds? The Council has contained countless conflicts through diplomacy, said Ambassador Thelvas of the Ethereal Collective. Surely humanity can benefit from our experience before taking such drastic action. Your experience? Jack's voice hardened. Your experience tells you to form committees while planets burn. Your experience says to issue strongly worded condemnations while billions die. We don't have 10,000 years of civilization to guide us, but we have something you seem to have forgotten. And what is that, young human? Asked the crystalline ambassador from the Silicon Alliance. The will to survive at any cost. Jack touched his datapad again. The hologram shifted to display Earth as it appeared from space, blue and white and achingly beautiful. Every human child learns about the Great Filter, the theory that there's some catastrophic challenge that prevents most intelligent species from becoming spacefaring civilizations. We always wondered what our filter would be. He paused, looking around the chamber. 3 years ago, when the Korvax destroyed their first world, we realized we'd found it. The image changed to show human history, wars, plagues, disasters that had nearly ended the species time and again. We've survived. Ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, and our own nuclear weapons. We've fought wars that killed hundreds of millions. We've faced extinction before and we're still here. Not because we're stronger or smarter than the species that didn't make it. Because when our backs are against the wall, we stop following the rules. Ambassador Vela stepped forward from her position. Jack, please. The Council can protect Earth. We have defense treaties, shield technologies. Like the ones that protected the Theta colonies? Jack interrupted. Or the defense grid around Nexus Station, or the impenetrable barriers that failed to save a single world from the Korvax. He brought up images of each fallen world, one after another. The truth you don't want to admit is that the Korvax have already figured out how to defeat every defensive technology in the known galaxy. They're not just expanding, they're systematically eliminating any species advanced enough to threaten them. That's speculation, protested Administrator Keth from the Merchant Guild. We have no proof of such intentions. No. Jack's fingers flew across the datapad. Then explain this. The hologram displayed intercepted Korvax communications, decoded and translated. The alien text scrolled across the display as Jack read aloud. Phase 7 commencing. Inferior species 2847 through 2852 have been catalogued for termination. Priority targets include any civilization demonstrating quantum manipulation capabilities or dimensional theory advancement. Species 2853, designated human, scheduled for elimination within current cycle. Notable for rapid technological adaptation, recommend overwhelming force to prevent defensive innovation. The chamber fell silent again. We're not just another target, Jack said quietly. We're on a list for extermination because we're advancing too quickly. The Korvax don't conquer, they eliminate competition. Counselor Zethnari's form flickered uncertainly. These documents, how did you obtain them? The same way we built our fleet without your knowledge. Humans are very good at doing things we're not supposed to do. Jack straightened his shoulders. Which brings me to our terms. Terms? The Kazarki ambassador's forearms tensed. You speak of terms as if you hold power here. We do. Jack touched his pad again. The hologram showed the human fleet. Thousands upon thousands of ships in formation. In 16 hours this fleet launches with or without you. But we're offering the Council a choice. He walked to the edge of the platform, looking out at the assembled beings. Join us, fight with us, share your knowledge, and we'll share our innovations. The weapons we've developed, the strategies we've created, they're unlike anything the Korvax have encountered. Together we might actually win this war. And if we refuse? Asked the Mechanist representative. Then we fight alone. And when we win, not if, when, humanity will remember who stood with us and who sat in comfortable chambers debating while we bled for our survival. Ambassador Ixril of the Hive Confederation rose on his multiple legs. You're asking us to abandon 10,000 years of diplomatic tradition for what? A military adventure led by a species that discovered faster than light travel just 50 years ago? No, Jack replied. I'm asking you to choose between your traditions and your survival. Because make no mistake, if humanity falls, the Korvax won't stop. They'll come for each of you, one by one, while you debate the proper response. In chambers like this, he pulled up a new image, a tactical analysis of the Korvax fleet. We've studied their patterns. After they destroy a target, they always spend exactly 42 days stripping the system of resources before moving on. They just finished with the Theta colonies. That gives them 39 days before they reach Earth. We intend to hit them, first, while they're still consolidating their forces. A preemptive strike violates every principle of the Galactic Accord, Zethnari said. The Korvax already violated those principles when they destroyed their first world, Jack countered. We're just refusing to pretend the rules still apply. The chamber erupted in debate again, but this time it was different. The ambassadors weren't just protesting, they were arguing with each other. Some were horrified by humanity's aggressive stance, while others showed signs of agreement. Ambassador Krar of the Kazarki Empire stood up, his warrior culture evident in his bearing. The human speaks truth. We've all seen the pattern. The Korvax test defenses, find weaknesses, then annihilate. How many more worlds must fall before we act? The Kazarki support this madness? Asked the Vasanti delegate, her light pulsing with distress. The Kazarki recognize that sometimes madness is the only sane response to extinction, Krar replied, his forearms crossed in a gesture of finality. Our battle fleets will join the humans. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. The Kazarki Empire commanded one of the largest military forces in the galaxy. The Mechanist Collective calculates a 68% chance of total Korvax victory if current diplomatic strategies continue, announced the synthetic delegate. Alliance with human forces and their unconventional weapons increases survival probability to 41%. Logic dictates we support this action. More voices joined in. Not all in support. Many species remained horrified by the idea of preemptive war. But enough were speaking up that it was clear the council was fracturing. Jack watched it all with grim satisfaction. He touched his communicator, speaking quietly. Admiral Chen, prepare for possible Allied integration. It looks like we might not be fighting alone after all. Counselor Zethnari raised his tendrils for attention. This council has stood for 10 millennia as a beacon of peaceful cooperation. Are we truly prepared to abandon everything we've built? Sometimes you have to burn down the old to save anything at all, Jack replied. Earth's fleet launches in 15 hours and 30 minutes. Any species that wants to join us should send their military commanders to these coordinates. He transmitted a location. We'll be conducting joint tactical planning. He stepped down from the platform and began walking toward the exit. As he reached the doors, he turned back to face the assembly one last time. 10,000 years ago, your ancestors chose to explore the stars instead of destroying themselves. They chose cooperation over conquest. That's admirable. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that peace without the strength to defend it is just waiting to die. The doors opened with a hiss. Humanity remembers, and in 15 hours, we'll remind the Korvax why our ancestors were the apex predators of Earth. Anyone who wants to survive should remember too. He walked out, leaving the Galactic Council to decide its own fate. Jack Morrison walked through the corridors of Space Station Concordia, his footsteps echoing in the vast hallway. His communicator buzzed constantly with incoming messages, but he ignored them. He had done what he came to do. Now it was time to prepare for war. Behind him, he could hear the doors of the grand chamber burst open. Multiple sets of footsteps rushed after him, some heavy, some light, some barely audible. Jack didn't slow down. "Ambassador Morrison," called Ambassador Vela, her scaled feet clicking rapidly against the floor. "Jack, wait." He stopped but didn't turn around. "Unless you're here to join our fleet, there's nothing more to discuss. You can't just walk away after dropping that bombshell," she said, catching up to him. Other ambassadors gathered around them. Krar of the Kazarki, the Mechanist delegate, and several others. "I already did," Jack replied. "The council is in chaos," said Ambassador Thelvas, his ethereal form shimmering with agitation. "Half the delegates are ready to join your war. The other half want to expel humanity from the council entirely. Then they should vote quickly. We launch in 15 hours, whether they've made up their minds or not." Krar stepped forward, his forearms crossed in what Jack had learned was a gesture of respect among the Kazarki. "My people will fight alongside you, but we need to coordinate. Your tactics, your weapons, they're unlike anything we've seen." Jack finally turned to face them. "That's the point. The Korvax have defeated every conventional military force they've encountered, so we decided not to be conventional." He pulled out his communicator. "Admiral Chen, I need clearance for a secure briefing room. We have potential allies who need to understand what they're getting into." "Briefing room 7 is ready, Ambassador," came the reply. "I'll have Lieutenant Foster meet you there with the tactical files." Jack looked at the assembled aliens. "Anyone who's serious about joining this fight, follow me. The rest of you should go back to your debates." He led them through the station to a secure section reserved for military planning. The briefing room was designed to accommodate multiple species, with adjustable environmental controls and universal display interfaces. Lieutenant Foster, a young woman with short black hair and intense brown eyes, was already there setting up holographic projectors. "Ambassador," she saluted, "I've prepared the classified tactical briefings as requested." "Thank you, Lieutenant." Jack turned to his alien companions. "What you're about to see doesn't leave this room. If any of you have doubts about fighting alongside us, leave now." None of them moved. "Good." Jack nodded to Foster, who activated the displays. The room filled with holographic ships, weapons schematics, and battle plans. The alien ambassadors leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused on the information. "First, let me show you how we built our fleet so quickly," Jack began. The display showed massive industrial complexes in space. 3 years ago, humanity's entire space infrastructure was civilian-focused. Mining operations, research stations, colony support. The image shifted to show the same facilities transformed. We converted everything. Every mining laser became a weapons platform. Every cargo hauler became a warship. Every communications satellite became part of a battle network. "Impossible," breathed the Mechanist delegate. "The resource allocation alone would require every human working 16-hour shifts for 3 years," Jack finished. "Children as young as 12 working in support roles. Elderly coming out of retirement to staff factories. We even recruited prisoners offering reduced sentences for military service." The display showed images of humans of all ages working in shipyards, factories, and training facilities. Your entire species did this voluntarily? Asked Ambassador Thelvis. When faced with extinction, humans don't ask if something is possible. We ask how to make it happen. Jack switched the display to show weapon systems. Now let me show you what we built. The hologram displayed a small, dart-shaped object. This is a wasp drone, 30 centimeters long, carries a micro-antimatter warhead. Individually, they're insignificant, but we don't deploy them individually. The image zoomed out to show thousands of the drones moving in coordinated swarms. Each swarm contains 10,000 units controlled by distributed AI. They can operate independently if jammed, reform after taking casualties, and adapt their attack patterns in real time. Most importantly, they can self-replicate using enemy ship materials. You created von Neumann weapons? The Mechanist delegate's synthetic voice carried what sounded like horror. Self-replicating war machines are banned by every civilized species. The Korvax aren't civilized, Jack replied coldly, and we're not interested in following rules that lead to our extinction. He changed the display again, showing a human warship that looked crude compared to the elegant vessels of older civilizations. Our capital ships aren't pretty, but they don't need to be. Each one is essentially a mobile factory. During battle, they continuously produce drones, missiles, and even smaller attack craft. The longer a battle lasts, the stronger we become. This is madness, said Ambassador Grill of the Hive Confederation, who had followed them from the chamber. You're talking about unleashing chaos weapons that could consume entire star systems. We've built safeguards, Foster interjected. Hard-coded limitations that prevent the drones from replicating beyond battle parameters. They're designed to break down after 96 hours without maintenance signals from our command ships. And, you trust these safeguards? Ixril's compound eyes glittered with skepticism. No, Jack admitted. That's why we have multiple redundancies. Chemical shutdown triggers, EMP deadman switches, and if all else fails, we'll use our own antimatter. Weapons to sterilize any swarm that goes rogue. He looked around the room at the assembled aliens. I know this terrifies you, it terrifies us too. But we're facing an enemy that's already demonstrated they'll stop at nothing to wipe us out. Sometimes you have to become the monster to fight. The monster? Krar straightened his massive frame. The Khazarki have a saying, in the arena of death, honor is the first casualty. We understand what you're doing, human. Show us how to integrate our forces with yours. Jack nodded and brought up a new display showing fleet formations. Our battle doctrine is based on overwhelming the enemy with multiple simultaneous threats. While they're dealing with drone swarms, we hit them with long-range antimatter torpedoes. When they adapt to that, we deploy the berserker ships. Berserker ships? Vela asked. Foster pulled up another schematic. Automated vessels with no life support, no shields, just engines and weapons. They're piloted by AI copies of our best combat pilots with all safety protocols disabled. They execute suicide attacks against enemy command ships. You've created digital copies of your own people to die repeatedly in battle? The ethereal ambassador seemed to pale, his luminous form dimming. The volunteers knew what they were agreeing to, Jack said quietly. Every berserker AI is based on pilots who lost family in the Yorktown massacre. They wanted revenge even after death. The room fell silent for a moment. How many of these weapons have you created? Asked the Mechanist delegate finally. Enough, Jack replied. We have contingencies for every Korvax tactic we've observed. But more importantly, we have something they don't expect. What's that? Jack smiled grimly. Desperation. The Korvax think like conquerors. They expect their enemies to fight for territory, for resources, for survival. They don't understand what happens when you corner a species that's already accepted its own death. He brought up a final display, a battle simulation showing human forces engaging a Korvax fleet. In every scenario, we take massive casualties, 60, 70, sometimes 80% losses. But we keep fighting. Our ships ram theirs when weapons fail. Our pilots overload their reactors for suicide runs. Our ground forces fight with chemical weapons, nuclear mines, bioweapons, everything banned by your civilized warfare codes. Jack looked at each ambassador in turn, So the question you need to ask yourselves is simple. Are you willing to fight alongside monsters to avoid extinction? Because that's what humans have chosen to become. And in 14 hours, we're going to show the Korvax what real monsters look like. The silence stretched for several long moments. Finally, Krar stepped forward and extended one of his 4 hands. The Kazarki fleet will fight beside your monsters, Ambassador Morrison. Perhaps it's time the galaxy remembered why it once feared us too. One by one, other ambassadors stepped forward. Not all of them. Some left the room in disgust or horror. But enough remained. Then let's begin planning, Jack said. We have 14 hours to turn a collection of different species into a coordinated force. Computer, initiate joint battle protocol simulations. We have a war to win. 12 hours remained until the launch. The secure briefing room had transformed into a war room, with multiple holographic displays showing fleet positions, weapon systems, and battle simulations. Jack Morrison stood at the central console, surrounded by military commanders from 7 different species who had chosen to stand with humanity. Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen from the bridge of the flagship Prometheus. Her weathered face showed the strain of 3 years of preparation. Ambassador Morrison, we've received confirmation from the Kazarki battle groups. 42 warships are moving to rendezvous coordinates. Understood, Admiral. What about the Mechanist forces? 17 automated dreadnoughts and 300 fighter drones, reported the synthetic commander. Our systems are synchronized with human battle networks. Integration protocols are functioning within acceptable parameters. Jack nodded and turned to the other allied commanders in the room. The Delphini had sent their rapid response fleet, 15 vessels designed for hit-and-run tactics. The Voidwalkers contributed their phase ships, only 7 in number, but capable of striking from alternate dimensions. Even the traditionally peaceful Vosanti had sent a support fleet equipped with advanced shield technology. That gives us a combined force of 25,000 human vessels and approximately 400 allied ships, Jack summarized, against 10,000 Korvax warships. The numbers still favor the enemy, noted Commander Zek of the Delphini, his translator rendering his ultrasonic language into standard speech. Even with your unconventional weapons, the casualty projections are catastrophic. Yes, Jack agreed simply. They are. A new figure entered the room, Ambassador Vela, her scales shifting through various colors indicating her emotional turmoil. The council is still in session, she reported. Zethnari has called for a formal vote on whether to censure humanity and revoke your membership. How's it looking? Jack asked. The vote is splitting along predictable lines. The older civilizations want to maintain neutrality. The newer species are leaning toward supporting your action. She paused. Jack, even some of those who won't fight are providing intelligence. The archivists have shared historical data on every Korvax battle. The Watchers have given us their sensor readings from border space. Jack allowed himself a small smile. So even the pacifists want us to win. They just can't bring themselves to fight. Can you blame them? Vela asked. What you're unleashing, it changes everything. Win or lose, the galaxy will never be the same. It already changed, Jack replied. The moment the Korvax decided expansion through extermination was acceptable, we're just the first species willing to admit it. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the discussion. Ambassador, we've detected movement in Korvax space. Their fleet is consolidating earlier than expected. If they're preparing to move on Earth. They're not, interrupted Lieutenant Foster, studying her tactical display. The movement patterns are wrong. They're forming a defensive perimeter. Jack leaned over her console. Show me. The hologram shifted to display Korvax territory. Red dots representing enemy ships were indeed gathering, but not in attack formations. They were creating a spherical defense around their core systems. They know, Jack said quietly. Somehow they know we're coming. Impossible, said Krar, his forearms gesturing in agitation. Your security has been flawless. How could they? It doesn't matter how, Jack cut him off. What matters is, they're ready for us. Computer, recalculate battle projections based on enemy defensive positioning. The AI processed for several seconds before displaying new casualty estimates. The numbers were even worse than before. 87% projected losses for human forces, the computer announced emotionlessly. 92% for allied vessels. Probability of mission success, 19%. The room fell silent. Even the battle-hardened Kazarki commander seemed shaken by the numbers. Perhaps, began the Mechanist delegate, we should reconsider the timing. If we wait, gather more allies. No. Jack's voice was firm. Every day we wait, they strengthen their defenses. Every hour we delay, they move closer to developing counters to our weapons. This is our one shot. At the cost of nearly our entire fleet? Demanded Commander Zek. This is suicide. Yes, Jack agreed again. It is. He straightened and addressed the room. 300 years ago, during Earth's Second World War, a group of pilots flew their planes into enemy ships knowing they would die. They called themselves kamikaze, divine wind. They believed their sacrifice would save their homeland. He gestured to the tactical display. Every human in our fleet knows the odds. They've said goodbye to their families. They've recorded messages for children they'll never see grow up. They've accepted that they're already dead. The only question is whether their deaths will mean something. You're all insane, whispered the Vasanti support fleet commander, her bioluminescence pulsing erratically. Probably, Jack acknowledged. But we're the insane species that's willing to die so the rest of you can live. The Korvax are counting on rational opponents. They expect us to see these numbers and retreat, to negotiate, to surrender. He brought up an image of Earth again. They don't understand that humans have a long history of fighting battles we can't win. Thermopylae, the Alamo, Stalingrad. We celebrate the defeats that bought time, that inspired others, that changed the course of history through sacrifice. Admiral, Chen's image flickered as she added, our psychological warfare division has been broadcasting messages to our fleet for weeks. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer knows they're part of something bigger. They're not just fighting for Earth. They're fighting for every species the Korvax have marked for extinction. Including yours, Jack said, looking at each allied commander. You can leave now. Take your ships and run. Try to find somewhere the Korvax won't eventually reach. But know this, when they come for you, and they will come, you'll face them. Alone. The room fell silent again. Outside, through the station's viewports, the first elements of the human fleet could be seen gathering. Ugly, angular ships built for function over form. Flying coffins crewed by people who had already accepted their fate. Finally, Krar straightened to his full height. The Kazarki have a tradition. When facing certain death, we paint our armor in the colors of our ancestors. Tonight, my warriors, will paint their ships. If we die tomorrow, we die as Kazarki should, with weapons in hand and enemies before us. The Mechanist Collective calculates that even a 19% chance of success is preferable to the certain extinction that awaits if the Korvax continue unchecked, the synthetic commander announced. We will proceed with the attack, one by one. The other commanders confirmed their commitment. Even the Vasanti, despite their horror at the casualty projections. Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They wouldn't be alone in this final gambit. Admiral Chen, begin final preparations for launch. All Allied forces, synchronize your departure times with the human fleet. We jump together, we fight together. And we die together, added Commander Zek grimly. Perhaps, Jack said. But if we die well enough, if we hurt them badly enough, maybe the next species the Korvax face won't be alone. Maybe the Council will finally understand that sometimes the choice isn't between peace and war, it's between war and extinction. An alarm chimed. 11 hours until launch. Jack looked around the war room one last time. Get to your ships. Brief. Your crews. In 11 hours we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the existence of humanity and our friends. As the commanders filed out, Vela lingered behind. Jack, I've received word. The council vote is happening now. They're going to formally denounce your actions. Jack shrugged. Let them. We'll either be dead or victorious before they finish writing their condemnation. I'm coming with you, she said suddenly. The Centauri Republic may not officially support this action, but I refuse to sit in that chamber debating while you fly to your deaths. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Someone needs to record what happens. Someone needs to tell the story if you succeed. And if you fail, well, at least I won't have to listen to Zethnari say I told you so. Jack smiled genuinely for the first time in hours. Welcome to the fight, Ambassador. I hope you don't regret it. I already do, she replied. But regret is better than extinction. 0 hour arrived. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's flagship. Around him, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces set with grim determination. Through the viewports, he could see the assembled fleet, 25,000 human vessels arranged in attack formations, interspersed with the ships of their newfound allies. All vessels report ready status, announced Admiral Chen from her command chair. Jump drives are charged, weapon systems online. The swarm carriers confirm their drone bays are at full capacity. Jack moved to stand beside her. Any word from the Council? They officially condemned our actions 17 minutes ago, she replied without emotion. They've also issued arrest warrants for you, me, and every human fleet commander. Apparently, we're war criminals now. At least we're in good company, Jack said, glancing at the tactical display where Allied ships showed as blue dots among the sea of green human vessels. Signal all commands. It's time. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. You know what's at stake. You know the odds. Most of us won't be coming back. But every ship we destroy, every Korvax warrior we kill, is one less threat to every peaceful world in this galaxy. Make your deaths count. Chen out. She turned to her navigation officer. Initiate jump sequence. All ships synchronize on my mark. The bridge grew quiet as the countdown began. Jack found himself thinking about Earth, about the billions of people watching the skies, knowing their defenders were about to throw themselves into the jaws of death. Jump in 3, 2, 1, mark. Reality twisted as 25,000 ships tore holes in space-time. The sensation of jumping always reminded Jack of falling in a dream, that moment of weightless terror before impact. Then the stars shifted, and they emerged in Korvax space. Alarms immediately screamed across the bridge. Enemy contact, shouted the tactical officer. Multiple targets bearing everywhere, they're everywhere. The view screen filled with the sight of the Korvax fleet. The intelligence had been accurate. They were ready and waiting. 10,000 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had built, formed a perfect defensive sphere around the Korvax core worlds. Launch all drones, Admiral Chen ordered. Deploy the Berserker squadrons. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega. The human fleet exploded into action. Swarm carriers disgorged millions of Wasp drones that formed glittering clouds in space. Berserker ships, their AI pilots singing digital battle hymns, accelerated to suicidal velocities toward enemy formations. Long-range antimatter torpedoes streaked toward their targets. The Korvax response was immediate and devastating. Energy beams sliced through human ships like paper. Plasma weapons vaporized entire squadrons. In the first 30 seconds of battle, humanity lost over 1,000 vessels. But the human attack wasn't designed for survival. It was designed for chaos. The drone swarms reached the enemy lines and began their deadly work. Millions of tiny machines latched onto Korvax hulls, detonating their antimatter charges or burrowing inside to replicate using enemy materials. Berserker ships, ignoring damage that would cripple normal vessels, rammed into Korvax dreadnoughts at relativistic speeds. Kazarki battle group engaging, reported the communications officer. They're hitting the enemy left flank. On the tactical display, Jack watched as the Kazarki warships lived up to their warrior reputation. They fought with brutal efficiency, their plasma cannons and missile batteries finding weak points in enemy shields. Mechanist dreadnoughts executing flanking maneuver, came another report. Void Walker ships phasing in behind enemy lines. The battle became a swirling maelstrom of destruction. Ships died by the hundreds on both sides. Nuclear detonations lit up space like temporary stars. The organized Korvax formation began to fragment as they dealt with threats from every direction. "Admiral," the tactical officer called out, his voice strained. "We've lost 40% of our fleet, but enemy casualties are mounting. Their command ship is exposed." Jack saw it on the display. A massive Korvax vessel, easily 10 times the size of the Prometheus. It had pulled back from the main battle line, trying to coordinate the defense against the chaos of human tactics. "All available ships concentrate fire on that command vessel," Admiral Chen ordered. She turned to her helmsman. "Take us in. Ramming. Speed." "Admiral," the young officer's voice cracked. "You heard me. Our weapons won't scratch that thing, but our mass at sufficient velocity will. All hands, prepare for collision." Jack gripped a support rail as the Prometheus accelerated. Around them, other human ships provided covering fire, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. Through the view screen, the Korvax command ship grew larger and larger. "Enemy shields at maximum," reported Tactical. "They're trying to target us, but the drone swarms are interfering with their sensors." 30 seconds to impact, announced the helmsman. Jack activated his communicator one last time. "Ambassador Vela, if you're still alive out there, make sure they remember this. Make sure they understand what we did here." "I'll tell them, Jack," came her voice filled with static and weapons fire. "The Centauri ship Starfire will bear witness." 20 seconds. The Korvax command ship filled their entire view now. Jack could see its weapons batteries desperately trying to track the Prometheus, but the swarming drones created too much interference. 10 seconds. "It's been an honor," Admiral Chen said quietly. 5 seconds. Jack closed his eyes, thinking of Earth, of blue skies and green fields, of everything they were dying to protect. Impact. The Prometheus struck the Korvax command ship at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to thousands of nuclear warheads. Both ships disappeared in a blinding explosion that momentarily outshone the local star. The death of their command ship threw the Korvax fleet into confusion. For the first time in their recorded history, their perfect coordination failed. Individual ships began making independent decisions, some retreating, others launching desperate attacks. The surviving human and allied forces pressed their advantage. Drone swarms, now numbering in the billions thanks to their self-replication, overwhelmed Korvax point defenses. Berserker ships continued their suicide runs. Allied vessels picked off isolated enemy ships. Hours passed. The battle raged across the entire star system. Debris fields grew so thick they became navigation hazards. The casualty count on both sides passed comprehension. Finally, after 12 hours of continuous combat, the remaining Korvax forces began a general retreat. They had lost over 60% of their fleet. The core worlds they had meant to protect lay exposed. Of the human fleet, less than 3,000 ships remained operational. Their allies had fared little better. But they had achieved the impossible. They had broken the Korvax war machine. On the bridge of the Centauri ship Starfire, Ambassador Vela recorded everything. The sacrifice of the Prometheus, the destruction of the Korvax command ship, the gradual collapse of enemy resistance. The price paid in lives for this victory. Days later, when news reached the Galactic Council, the debate hall fell silent for the first time in its 10,000-year history. Councillor Zethnari, who had condemned humanity's actions, simply bowed. His plasma form in acknowledgement of their sacrifice. The recording of the battle spread across the galaxy. Every species saw what humans had done, how they had thrown away their lives not for conquest or glory, but to protect others. The young, aggressive species that had worried the established civilizations had proven themselves in the most final way possible. In the aftermath, as Allied forces secured the Korvax core worlds and dismantled their war infrastructure, a new phrase entered the galactic lexicon. Human crazy. It wasn't an insult. It was a recognition that sometimes, when faced with annihilation, the rational response is to abandon rationality itself. The Korvax Empire never recovered. Their expansion ended that day. broken against the wall of human determination and sacrifice. And across the galaxy, species that had watched from safety began to understand a fundamental truth. Humans might be young, might be aggressive, might be a little insane, but they were exactly the friends you wanted when the universe itself was at stake. As for Earth, it mourned its dead but celebrated its survival. The planet that had sent forth its children to die among the stars now stood as a symbol of defiance against extinction. And in the halls of the Galactic Council, where debates continued as they always had, there was one difference. Now when someone suggested appeasement in the face of aggression, others would simply say, "Remember what the humans did." And everyone would remember.